Hello, I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome once again to another edition of the new Character Matters program. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face, and that affects every aspect of our lives, from our interpersonal relationships, our marriages, our community affairs, our politics, our world affairs. Every aspect of business, finance, every aspect of our lives is affected by this character issue that has become an issue primarily because we have allowed character to not occupy the place that it once did. We don't pay it the kind of attention that we once did. It used to be the paramount thing that parents wanted to instill in their children. It used to be the most important thing that educational institutions wanted to provide children. It used to be what mattered the most to companies in their hiring process and in their advancement process. It used to matter a lot more than it does these days. And it's not just that things were better in the good old days. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you don't have to look at too many statistics to know that something pretty remarkable has happened over the last several decades. And when you look very closely at all the many explanations, the thing that comes glaringly through is that character does not matter as much to us as it once did. Fact is, though, that it does matter. It matters more than anything else. That's why this program is titled what it is, Character Matters. It matters whether we acknowledge it or whether we acknowledge how much that it matters. It matters to everything. And when we make it matter again, when we give it the preeminence that it once enjoyed, many things will turn around. Now, last week, we were wrapping up a discussion that I said would continue this week about a commandment of character development that I've been talking about, having to do with developing a healthy sense of self and self-worth. And I mentioned that we were probably going to continue that discussion for a while, because when it comes to really understanding ourselves and our worth, it's a deeper subject than it looks, and it's worth a lot of introspection. But this week, I am instead going to move on to the fourth commandment that I'm going to be talking about at length in my upcoming book, Essentials for the Journey, a book that should be ready for release within the next 8 to 9 weeks. As you know, I have 4 books presently in sheep's clothing, understanding and dealing with manipulative people. This is an international bestseller that first described what we now call the gaslighting effect, the experience that folks on the receiving end of manipulation tactics experience, this crazy making feeling. And it also outlines all of the tactics that manipulative folks prefer to use, and how to counter them or not be swayed by them, and many other helpful bits of information. And then my book, Character Disturbance, which takes a broad look at all the disturbed characters out there, from narcissists to antisocial types to sociopaths and psychopaths. They're all in there, and also valuable information on what to look for when you're trying to get help, especially when you're recovering from a toxic relationship. And then my book, The Judas Syndrome, for the Christian faith community. And lastly, my book, How Did We End Up Here? My book co-authored with Dr. Kathy Armistead about surviving and thriving in this character disturbed world of ours, picking up the pieces and moving on after a toxic relationship, uh, understanding the uh, times well enough to avoid perhaps another pitfall in a relationship as you move on. But this next book means a lot more to me than all the books I've written because it has to do with how we lost character and what we must do to reclaim it. Whether you're a younger person being shaped in part by your environment and your parents, and your school teachers, and other aspects of society, or an adult who has come to realize that you have a lot more character development to do in order to be the kind of person that actually inwardly you want to be, but have never been able to be. So I want to move on to the fourth important principle or life axiom, important lesson that we all must learn and master and embrace with open arms in order to be people of decent character. And that is to have reverence for the truth. And I will spend some time on this topic because reverence for the truth is at an all-time low. And I do mean reverence. We'll talk a little bit about what that in itself means in just a bit. You know, I was a fan of the television series House, and the lead character, Gregory House, was famous for saying, everybody lies. And what he meant by that was that when people, even people in crisis, when they present for some help, for various reasons, they might not tell you the whole story. They might not give you background that they're ashamed of. They might be in such a state of panic and fear and denial that they haven't allowed themselves to acknowledge certain things that have been going on. And therefore, they can't really consciously relate those things to the person that's trying to help them, trying to figure out what's going wrong so that they can intervene, perhaps, in a healthy way. And in a big way, the character House is correct. We are folks who are incredibly capable of deceiving. And perhaps the worst lies that we tell are not the lies that we tell others in a manipulative way to get our way, to sway others. In the political world, they call this spin, telling some half truths, some neatly tidied up or altered truths, gerrymandering the facts, so to speak, in a way that serves one's purpose but doesn't tell the whole story. There are so many, many ways to lie. But perhaps the biggest and most damaging lies are the lies that we tell ourselves, especially about ourselves. Because those lies, like all lies, keep us from growing, keep us from learning how to love better, to be better, to prepare ourselves for the next step in our personal evolution, to grow in character. At the heart of it all, you can always find the lie, the heart of any difficulty. So the so-called fourth commandment of character development is all about reverence for the truth. What does it mean to revere something? It means to hold it in high esteem, to value it, to stand before it with some degree of awe, realizing its inherent value, its inherent power, its inherent ability to create something positive, to grow you. And the truth has that power. It's been famously said that it has the power to set you free. It has the power to do more than that. But first, we have to face it. And second, we have to embrace it as the supreme value that it is. Now, having reverence for the truth does not mean that you are obliged to tell every single person in every single situation, every single thing that you believe to be so. First of all, just because you think it so doesn't make it so. Secondly, even if it is so, you're not obliged to say it if its purpose serves no good, regardless of the intent. If it serves no useful, growing, good purpose, you're under no obligation to say it or do it. No, reverence for the truth is much bigger than that. It has to do with reverence for something even bigger. You see, in my experience, I've come to believe that truth is the ultimate higher power, as they say, in some of the 12-step groups. And anyone who's familiar with the 12-step programs know that there's this concept of coming to believe in something bigger than oneself and then turning one's life and one's will over to this bigger something, however you want to see it, as a way of basically not kidding yourself anymore that you can handle things on your own and keep messing them up the same way you've always been messing them up. So this is a pivotal concept within the 12-step programs. And truth, as I see it, is the ultimate higher power. It's that kind of thing that stands between us and what we will to be so, or what we hope is so, as opposed to what deep down we kind of know is so. Some folks, the way their character is impaired, I'm talking about certain narcissistic folks, these folks have no respect for any higher power. They're truly legends in their own minds. The only power that they serve is themselves. The only thing they want to bow down to is their own desire, their own sense of their own grandiosity, their own image that they've constructed for themselves. And some folks, more severely character impaired than your average narcissist, some folks are at outright war with the truth. It's in their way. It's in their way of getting what they want and feel entitled to. And besides which, it is much easier to cheat. It doesn't require effort. Some folks really pride themselves in their ability to finagle as opposed to truly earn. You know, some research has been done online, and researchers have uncovered several reasons, 20 some reasons why people lie. They all boil down to one of two basic reasons: either to avoid something that we find distasteful in some way, or that we might find painful in some way, or to secure something that we don't think we're going to secure as easily or as effectively the honest way. And that's why we lie, even to ourselves. At some level, almost all of us know, at some level, when we have allowed ourselves to go astray on this path of personal development, when we're not really the kind of person that we all have it within us to be. But then we have to reckon with one of two very important four-letter words. The first one being WORK. We have to reckon with how much work that it takes, how much effort that it requires to shape ourselves up into the kind of human being that we all have it within us to be, but resist being because, well, underneath it all, we're all kind of primitive animals with all kinds of basic inclinations. The other four-letter word that allows us to even consider doing the work involved in character growth is LOVE, not the sentiment, the behavior and the commitment to the behavior. Working to make yourself a better person, and in the process, make the world a better place, is what defines love. And it's the singular command that we all need to heed in order to turn this madness that plagues us around. But so long as we deceive others and ourselves, so long as we pretend, so long, especially as we have the capacity to look good, as opposed to actually being good, which takes a lot more work. So long as we don't have the desire and the will to be honest and to honestly reckon with ourselves, to face the facts, to face the truth, and in humble reverence for it, let it teach us. Unless we do that, we cannot grow in character. It's probably at heart the most essential of the commandments we've been talking about so far. Because without reverence for the truth, without at least the capacity to reckon with the truth about our circumstances, about our relationships, and especially about ourselves, without the ability to do that and the willingness to do that, and the willingness to have the courage to honestly face all that we have to face in this life and to deal with it honestly. Without that, no other growth is possible. None of the other, you can't possibly heed well any of the other principles that we've been talking about. And it all starts first with the reverence. You have to realize what a priceless thing the truth is and what power it has, especially when we face the truth about ourselves. Sometimes that's not pretty, but it's always good. It's always good because it always grows. It always makes things better. The way the world will change is one heart at a time, starting with our own. If we set a climate by ourselves, heeding these timeless principles that I've been talking about in this series, then others will be more encouraged to do the same. But it is not our place to preach or cajole or to try and force others to conform. Hearts don't change that way. The world will be full of more wholesome characters when more among us decide to take that honest look at themselves and forge themselves into better characters. But first of all, we have to reclaim some reverence for truth as a value. These days, it has virtually no value. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants it to be the truth. They don't even want to challenge themselves or their perspectives. Most of the time, folks just want their way and they want their perspective to prevail, and they want to have what they want. And all's fair, as they say in Love and War, all's fair. Whatever it takes. We see this particularly egregiously in the political realm. I don't want to take sides here because every side is equally guilty. But we have this notion of spin. And it's all about securing the goal. And every excuse is offered for it. Well, if we don't win, then we don't have the power to affect any changes. And so we have to do whatever it takes to win. So what if we have to tell a little half truth, or so what if we have to tarnish the reputation of somebody else and play ourselves up as better? So what? What does the truth matter? If you look at human misery carefully, at human pain, at unfortunate circumstance, outside of natural disasters, sneaking around in the little crevices of reality, you'll always find the lie. You'll always find the distortion that led to the dilemma. We're good at sweeping things under the rug. We're good at ignoring things. We're good at wishing them away because that's easier than the work, the W-O-R-K, that four-letter word, that's easier than the work that defines the other four-letter word, L-O-V-E, love. It's just much easier to cheat, but it comes with a cost to our own, a cost to our survival as a species, and a cost to our own personal welfare, and in a spiritual sense, a tremendous cost to the life of our very soul. In a sense, the lies we tell, both wittingly and unwittingly, to each other and to ourselves. These lies are truly the kiss of death, spiritual death and character death. Sometimes, for example, we can be in a relationship that we know is toxic, yet we're still getting something out of it. Or perhaps we're still so insecure about ourselves and so fearful of our ability to make it on our own that we endure and tolerate what we know we shouldn't be tolerating. We deceive ourselves when the truth would have the power to set us free, but it always comes at a price. It always comes with a price tag, usually a high one, in the way of the kind of energy that it's going to take to make your position, your situation better. The work that it takes that defines what it is to truly love. And of course, as we mentioned when we were talking about the last commandment, you can't even begin to understand this whole concept of love until you've known what it is to love yourself properly. I can't tell you the number of times in counseling when I've asked the question very directly, in training, many times, uh, therapists are taught, don't ask why questions because it puts people on the spot. It raises their defenses. I learned early on that it's not the question that's the problem, it's the how you approach the question that can throw someone on the defensive. But with purely loving intent, I can't tell you the number of times that when it's clear that I only mean well for the person, I've asked them the question, why do you suppose that you allowed yourself to do what your heart was telling you? Maybe that's not such a great idea. Why do you suppose that you did that? The truth of the answer was almost always not just freeing, but empowering. As soon as the person I was working with said, this is what that was all about. And I kind of knew it at the time, but there was something I was afraid of, or something I needed, or something I was not sure about that kept me from exercising my better judgment. And the reason in counseling that it's important to not only tell the truth, but to face the truth is that it's the foundation for trust in a relationship, any relationship. Too many relationships these days are built upon pretense. People don't say what they mean. They don't mean what they say. There's an angle that they have. They might be able to charm. They might be able to seduce. But that doesn't mean they can really love. So I've introduced this week a topic that we will, I promise you, spend a great deal of time on. Reverence for the truth is at an all-time low. And there are forces in this world that are deliberately fueling division as a way of winning a war, a battle for supremacy. On social media, with all the half-truths, all the deliberate lies, that doesn't negate the fact that the truth is still out there, ready and waiting for us to find it, appreciate its inherent value, and to revere it above anything else. First, we must seek it. First, we must relentlessly pursue it. And we have to do that in a humble manner. We'll talk about that character trait at some later point. Most people go pursuing information, especially when they're doing the search, to validate what they already believe. That's not the kind of truth pursuit that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of reverence and honoring of and relentless pursuit of the truth about ourselves and each other and our state of affairs that can truly not only free us, but empower us, help us grow again, help us love better, solve our problems together, prosper together. It's all predicated on our reverence for the truth. Without that, there is no chance. I've said this before in many, many workshops across the country, and I'll say it again. If we can't get pretty brutally honest with ourselves, about ourselves, and with each other, about each other, and our relationships, we're done. We're done. But I'm not a pessimist. I believe that long before the big lie succeeds in destroying us, we will reclaim what matters when we've suffered enough, perhaps even when we're on the brink of extinction. We will reclaim what matters. And I hope in the process that we will reclaim our reverence, the degree of reverence, at least, that we once had for the truth and its power to grow us and to heal us. So I'll be having much more to say about this in the upcoming episodes of the new Character Matters. And I invite you once again to visit my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. That's drgeorgesimon.com. And to avail yourself of my books, readily available on Amazon or any major reseller and in multiple formats, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, the book that lays it all out there. The Judas Syndrome, and How Did We End Up Here? Surviving and thriving in this character disturbed world of ours. So until next time, I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.